The topic of today's video is going to be slab folds. The type you will see most likely in balconies. We have a small step, or even in a split level slab, but probably most likely balconies. Now I've got a little sketch here that I'll just drag into view, and this sketch sort of shows the scenario that we typically face. So in this case, we've got a fold or a step in the slab, and we've got some Z bars to deal with the step. So it's not quite a beam, it's sort of just a fold, like a thickening. And we have the bottom bars projecting inwards and we have the top bars projecting inwards. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that the rebar just sort of ends here. And this is typical of a slab that's post-tension. So in this area and further beyond, there most likely won't be any reinforcement apart from reinforcement over columns and perimeter reinforcement, because the post-tensioning will deal with the rest. But this is a very typical slab sort of arrangement in Australia. So let's see how we detail this arrangement. Also in the model, you'll see that I've got two examples here. They are modeled differently in terms of concrete. This is typically what we find with IFC imports, is where you have a slab modeled in the bottom, you've got a slab on the top, and they've joined the two together with a full depth slab, so to stitch them together. So there's an overlap here and there's an overlap there, and we'll just see how we deal with that. This one, however, is got a slab in the bottom, a slab in the top, and it's stitched together with just a small little piece of insert, so there's no overlapping on this one. Pretty much the same outcome in terms of reinforcement, but I'm going to use this one to show an alternative to Z bars where you have full reinforcement on the slab. I think let's just start out. I'll go transparency mode, I'll go Control P, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to isolate this so we don't see the other one. So if I select that, go right click, select in selected view, so we'll only see this one now. And then as tradition has it, we've got 16s at 200, so I'll go and select my 16 mains. I'll keep my main layer reinforcement, I'll keep red, and then for the offsets nothing, and for the target spacing 200, all of that is okay. And then what I will do is I'll hover over this part of the slab, and instead of selecting all of it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this, the front part and the bottom part for the rebar, and I'm going to say okay. Now, before we move on, we're going to the top part, we're going to finish off this bar. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, if I just drag my view in here, we want to deal with this bottom bar. So it's got a hook at this end coming around here. It's split, it's got a splitter here, and the reason why they put a splitter here is just to give the guy some adjustment on site. If you have a number fit there and they somehow the formwork changes or the dimensions on site changes and you've scheduled it without giving a bit of grace here in terms of a lap, they might run into problems. And then this one that's split that goes up here goes up all the way. It's one bar to the top of another slab. So let's do that first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my leg visibilities are on. And then I'm going to click on the stop part. I'm going to hover over this edge of the and I'm just going to drag that down. Now the reason why I'm doing that, why I'm dragging it down to the concrete, is that once we have that sort of at the concrete's edge, we've got control at how much we want to insert. Now there's two ways. There's click on this, extend that by the exact amount you want, but then if that changes, you have to come back and stretch again. Or the way that I prefer to do it is I select the bar, I go up to our end detail, make sure that we've loaded any defaults. Then for the hook type, I select no hook. And then for the adjustment type, I'll say give us an offset, and the offset we want is a 400 millimeters. Now, if we then hover over this end, we can see we have an extension of exactly 400. Should this now change, we don't have to fiddle with the face. All we have to do is just click the modifier, and we can change anything here. We can even introduce hooks or whatever we want in here. You know, we can also affect every second. There's a lot of stuff we can do with that, but I think that's the better way of detailing if you want to cater for change management. The next thing we're going to deal with is this bar. Now, according to our sketch, this bar should go up this wall and up to the top of that slab. So the quick way of doing this is you can say add a leg and then swing around and add this face and then do all kinds of stuff. But the quick way to do it is you click on this bar, you hold in your control key, you select that leg and you drag it up. If you control drag up and we drag up to 750, because that's the difference between the two, it creates a leg instantly for you. And now you can repeat that process again. You can just hold in your control key, click on that face and then drag it, say for instance 900 mils. And just like that, we've now created that Z bar that the sketch showed. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to split these bars here because they've got a hook on the top and a hook at the bottom. Let's just have a look at our sketch. So it's these little hooks here. So let's deal with that first. So if we click on this bar and we say give us a splitter, and I'll just load my defaults, see what happens, and I go in the middle of this face and I split it. You see how everything that wraps around, and what it's trying to do is it's trying to build up 350 millimeters each side, because when you click on this, we have a 700 lap divided by 2 is 350. That's not what we want. What we want is a custom lap, and I'm just going to chuck in there 100 millimeters. And now if we look at that and we see these values popping up on the screen, it's 200. That's a typical 200 lap that you would expect in a 16 millimeter bar. Where does the 200 come from? Well, a 16 bar's actual diameter is 19, and a typical hook standard would be 10 times the bar diameter of 19, which is 190 millimeters. So we round it off or round it up to 200 mils. So that's really what we want to achieve. So instead of having like a splitter to lap something, we have a splitter to generate a hook. Now, this is just a quick way of doing it, and the reason why I do it like that is we don't have to deal with clashes. You know, Tekla sort of in the form of a splitter, Tekla's just taking care of that for us. And now we can move on. The next thing that the sketch wants is there's a splitter down the bottom here to separate this little L bar from this little Z bar, or big Z bar, long Z bar. So what we can do is click at it once again, go to the splitter. This time we have to reset our settings. So we load our standard, so we're back to a standard bar. And then we can just, now normally these dimensions will be indicated on an engineer drawing for you, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to say 1000 millimeter. And once I do that, we end up with, and maybe what I'll do is I'll just go group bars so we can just get a better picture. Now we have this blue bar that wraps around, that's the 1L. We've got this cyan bar on the top that extends into the beam. And then the third one we have this green bar is now the Z bar we want. Now, if I click on this bar, we can see that the length of this leg, although we stretch this 900 millimeters, it's giving us a leg of 944. The reason for that is because of the cover. You can see it's extending to the back of this. And if we want that leg to be exactly 900, which is what I want, then what we can do is go over to the end detail modifier, reset our standards, and then for the hook type, again, we're going to say we don't want a hook. But for the adjustment type, we're going to say we want the leg length, and the leg length we want is 900. And once we do this and hover over that, Tekla then fixes that to a 900 leg. So you can see we've got a 900 leg there, and that bar is exactly as intended now. So we've pretty much dealt with all of that in one set. So if I click on that, that's still one set of bars, and I'll just switch off the visibility so it's a bit more clear what's going on. Right, so if we look at that now, if we click on that bar, that's one set. So we've managed to get 3 bars. It's the L on top, the L at the bottom, and then there's long Z out of one set. And we didn't have to worry with spacing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go Control P to see a plan. And then on the top, I'm going to click on the spacing bar. And I'm going to say Modify Settings. So just see what we've got here. Now we've got our minimum calculated cover there. And we've got the maximum amount of bars fit in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it. I'm going to say I want an offset of 50 at the bottom. I also want an offset of 50 on the top. And once I do that, oh, that's very coincidental, but it's very nice for us. But it's now Tekla come up with 12 spaces at 200, which is 13 bars exactly. Now, the reason why I always do that, and I know I repeat myself in these videos with that, but it's very important. Once you arrive at the drawing, you're not going to wonder why you get strange target spacings. These spacings are exact. And it's always better to just give them a bit of grace off the cover. You don't have to go all the way down to the cover. The cover is a minimum setting, not a maximum. So when the bars in the other direction fold around, you don't have to worry about are they going to interfere with the rounding of the bar. So it's good practice to do this. So the next thing we want to do is we want to deal with the other bars. So if I just sort of go in 3D again, let's just have a look at the sketch. So I think the next thing we need to do is just deal with this little straight bar here down the bottom here. Now, there are a lot of ways to deal with this. The most probably the easiest way I would imagine is to go Control P and then hit this by surface or by face, and we still have the same settings here. And then what we need to do is we want to work on the bottom of the slab, so we want to work on the far face, and then we'll see what comes up here. But what I also want to do is I want to work with a rectangular area. Now if we pick this bottom corner here and we just pull it across to there somewhere, we can see the direction of the Cyan line, so that's the wrong orientation. So what we do is we just come here and we click this one, and now if we go here, we've got the right orientation. Now in terms of the size, if you sort of get funny dimensions, what you can do is like that one. You can hold in your shift key and just sort of start panning. You'll see that it will eventually get you the dimension you want. In this case, we can just deal with the, and if it doesn't accept, like there I clicked, oh, and it did accept it because exactly, oh yeah, it's exactly under the other because we accept the same dimension. So once we've got that clicked and that's in place, what we can do now is we can again, because this, if we just look at the leg face again, we can see it's ended at the concrete. So now we're going to control the amount of projection into the beam. We're going to control that with a end modifier, and this time it's no hook, and the length is not a length, it's a offset, and we're going to be offsetting this 400 like we did before. And then if I click over here, that will extend it in to the beam for us. And now if we just click on that and we look at the bar length, and it's not lighting up at the moment, but we can always do an inquiry. You can see it's 1250, and well, actually it says it there. So I think in this regard it actually works out quite well. I think we've been a bit lucky there. So if I go into Control P mode and I click on that bar that we've just put in, it's obviously clashing at this intersection. So there's a really quick fix for this. And now remember these bars, if I just click on those again, these bars happen to be 12 at 200 exactly, and the target spacing of 200, 50, 50. So that worked out nice. So to fix these up, the first thing we're going to do is we know that from the center to the end is 50 millimeters. So we need to move this bar one on. So 50 plus 19 gives us 69. And we need to look at the direction. The direction arrow is here. So this is the start. So we want to change the start to 69. So as soon as we do that, we can see, and I moved the wrong bar. So let's just undo that Z and pick the right bar and do the start at 69. That moves the bar exactly off edge. And now in terms of the, if I can click on the control line here and just show me your dimensions, you'll see now we've got 69 here, but we end up with a bad dimension there again. So what we can do with this dimension again, we can just say, give us an odd last space, a flexible last space, modify. That will fix that up. And then all we need to do is at this end here is also add the 69 to the end. And just like that, we now have a clash-free crossing there. And again, your drawings will be good because all these bars will be at 200 millimeters spacing except for the last bay. Okay, now that we've got that, the last bar we need to look at is this Z bar over here. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use, well, we can use bar by face or we can use crossing bar. I think let's use the crossing bar for this. And what I'm going to do here is I'll just go back to our 50. And then everything else remains the same. What I'm going to do here is also just go target 200. And what I'll do is I'll hover over this, but I'll only select this vertical face here. And then I'll say, okay. So we get these little stubbies at the end here. So the quick fix to turn that into a Z again is if you click on this bar, we get our face. And then again, holding your control key, and then click and drag this, and let's just call it 900 mils. So that'll give us a leg on the top here. This bottom one, if we hover over the edge here, we can take this arrow that will keep it ortho to the bottom, and that extends that. And then once we're at the bottom again, we can just take our control key, drag this leg to 900. And just like that, we've now created a Z bar in place. So what we need to do now is just look at the spacing and the leg lengths. So I'll click on this bar to make sure we've got the right bar selected. I will switch off my visibility, and then I'll go Control P to see it from the top, and we can look at our leg spaces quickly. So this bar needs to move. This bar is clashing. Let's just see where it's clashing. It's obviously clashing with that one, so it can move one across, and it's going to miss that one. So if we move this bar one across, we should be good. So one across means 69 to this value. So that moves it across. And then in terms of the spacing, you can see here from 12 at 198, the spacing is a bit crooked again. So if we click that and say, give us a flexible last space, modify, that fixes up all the spacing for us. And now the last bar, you can see we've got that clashing again. So all we do is we just increase the cover there to 69. And that should be it. That should be, let me just see if I can rotate here. There we go. That should now have all the bars in the main direction clash free, working with each other, and we've got our Z. Now the only thing we need to do is we've got a problem here, you can see there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to deal with the legs of these bars. So for this one, what we can do in the bottom, it only needs a like a leg to stand on. So what we can do is we can say, give us a leg length this time, and give us a leg length of say 600. And no hook, and then if you hover over that bar, it will pull it back. So you can see we've now dealt with that problem. And on the top, the leg can be the same as with the other bar, which is 900. So again, in modifier, we want a leg length, and this time 900. We can just hover over this edge, and that turns that Z into a 900 by 600 by whatever the vertical is, which is 700. If we go inquire, we can see a 900, 700, 600, beautiful dimensions, and also clash free at this stage. So the only thing that we need to do to finish this up is to do our distribution. Now that's the easiest part of the lot. So if we go longitudinal, and we'll pick a different color for this, green, and I will get rid of the offset so Tekla doesn't auto calc. We'll go at target spacing, and let's make this, because they distribution still just 300, make them a bit bigger. And then what we'll do is we'll hover over this edge, and then we'll pick the bottom, but we'll also pick the top, and that takes care of that. And at this one, what we can do is we can pick the top and the bottom as well, and we'll have to trim those down a little bit. And we can say, oh, let's do this one differently. I'll escape there. I'll show you a different way to do it. But let's just look at what we've put in here. We can see that's worked out quite nicely, except for the top. It's going too far. That bar is loose. So there's two things you can do here. The one thing is you can click on this bar. You can click on this bar and say, omit the last bar. Okay. And that problem goes away. The other option, if you don't do that, is to switch on your leg visibility again, and then bring this leg back to the end of this bar, and that gives you the sort of same result. Okay, now in terms of this, another way to deal with it, so let's do the bottom first, because if we look at our sketch, if we just pull this into view, on the bottom here with the, it's only got bars in this area, there's no bars there, and the top one obviously is the full width. So what we can do with this is, again, if we go Control P, we can go to our face, and again we deal with the far face or the bottom of the beam, and we're dealing with a rectangular area, and then we can pick the inside of the beam, which is that side there, and we can look at our orientation. We can flick it. That's the correct way. And then what we can do is just pick our 850 again as before, and just like that, we've now got those bars in, and they should be in the right level and at the right thing. Now the only thing is that that's sitting right in the center there. So if we click that bar, we can just go to the end and say, give us a 25mm cover, and that pushes that in. So that's exactly what we need there. Now we can do the same on the top. On the top, we can do exactly the same on the top, I think. So if we go face, and again Control P, and we go near face this time, and we will pick this side of the beam, like so, and we can go across to that point there, and you'll see there's a snappy point there, and it gives us that. So that should go perfectly in the top, and that deals with it. Now if we look at this, let me just see if we get a better view with groups on. Not really. So switch the groups off, leg visibility off. If we look at this in our elevation, and I'll just isolate this. Beg your pardon, we first just select something and then right click and say select in selected views. If we look at that, we can see this is we've now pretty much achieved what we needed to achieve in the sketch. We've pretty much got this Z bar done in the inside. We've got the one on the back. We've got this little short bar here with only distribution in that area, and then we have the L on top and the L at the bottom. So there's our long Z that goes up to a point here. If I just zoom in there's a little line, and then we have our short L that comes up here. We've got another L on the top. We've got our separate Z on that side, and we've got our green distribution bars. Okay, so having done that, let's see how we can do the other one. So what I'll do here is I'll just go W2 and create a bigger workspace here so I can see the other slab. And then what I'll do is I'll grab this slab, right click and say fit in selected view so we can isolate that one. Great. Okay, now let's look at this one quickly. So this one I'm going to do differently. I'm going to pretend that this little piece is a conventional slab, so it's fully reinforced. So the quick way to do that is crossing bars, N16s. Red is our major, our outer layer, and we'll get rid of the offsets. And our target again will be 200 in this direction. And then if we hover over this side, we can pick all of them and say OK. We can do the same on this side and say OK. So now we've got those two slabs there. Now the first thing we need to do with these two is to split them so they can become L bars. So again, we'll click on that and we'll go splitter. And from previous, we know that we need to do a custom. And previously we used 150 mils with this one. So let's see if that works for us. So if I click there, we can look at the leg. It's not quite right. We want a 200 leg. If I just click on the bar, you'll see that that's 230. So if we increase this or decrease this to 100 mils, that gives us 203. No, it's 200 and 210. That's really, but I suppose that's really odd. That's really odd, unless I didn't put that exactly in the center. Let's just try that again. If I click on this and say, give me a splitter, and it's 100 mils, and there's no, and we'll just go to the, that gives me 200 and 210. Well, it's close enough, I think it is, but I mean, you can play with the figures there. I think you're not going to gain, I mean, 210 mils. No idea why it's coming up with that. But anyway, let's have a look at that. And that side, it's 200. That's really, really interesting. So let me see if we delete this one, and we know that one works. If we take this one and say right click, copy linear, and we copy it from this side to this side and say copy, it's reproduced it on this end. And now if we click on the bar, we get 200, 200. So it's quite strange. It might have been just the way I clicked or snapped, the position I snapped, that I didn't quite get it in the center. But as you can see there, the aim is 200 legs, and we have achieved that with a single bar. On this side, we've got a shallower slab. So let's just split it to start out with and see what we get. So we get a really odd dimension there. So if we go here, and we will have to I think increase that, I beg your pardon, to 125 or maybe 150 because we're on 187. So if we go 150 here, there we go. We've got our 200 legs. So if we click here, we've got our 200 legs. So if we then take this one and just replicate it, copy linear, we replicate it on the, you have to make sure it clicks, and we replicate it on this side, say copy. Now we've got our hooked bars done with single inputs. so we don't have to worry whether they match or not. Teclist has taken care of that in the set, but we managed to turn those into L bars. And now we need to put in the Z bars. Now, in this way, I'm gonna show you a manual way and a better or another way to do it. And we'll use the point command for this. And make sure you pick your linear. And then we'll stick to a 16, but I'm going to make it a different color. Let's make it purple. And then the offsets, let's just stick to the 50 we've got. Distribution is 200. Now, what I'm going to do is just pick any arbitrary length down the bottom here, and then go all the way up to the top of the slab, and then pick an arbitrary distance over here, and then say middle mouse to pick the bar. And then for the spacing line, we can pick this corner over to the other corner. Now that will generate a bar for us sort of with random leg lengths and also with, how can I say, it will pick the next layer for you. So if we pick this bar, so first thing is let's fix up the spacing. I think that's the easiest thing to do. So if I click on our original bars here, I just want to make sure that we actually didn't implement the 50 there. So I'll do 50 here and 50 here, so we get nice spacing. So it will give us a nice spacing. So I'll do the same with the top. Just quickly introduce a 50 start and end cover, and then that gives us nice bars. And now what we can do is with the Z bars, we know that 50 works, so we need to jump 1, 2 of them. So 50 plus, it's 69 plus another one is 88 mils. So if we do 88 mils there, we get that one exactly. And now to make it work spacing wise, we need to say give us an odd last space, modify. That fixes up the spacing. And then if we look at the last one, we just need to pull it up by 1. So it's 69. And that fixes up the Z bars exactly for us. Now, the only thing we need to do with this Z bar is to look at the leg offsets. So if we go leg faces, we can see that this, if I click on this leg, it's in layer 2 there. But also when I click on it, we can see layer 2 there. So we'll just push that back into layer 1 so it sort of ties up with that leg. On this face here, you can see also it's in face 2. So click on the face and we can push that back into face 1. So that ties it up nicely on the back. And now on the top, you can also see that we've got a layer 2 here. So if we click on that one and force that into 1, that Z bar is now exactly in the right layer. It's tying with the right bars, right position. So the only thing that's left to do is just look at its leg dimensions. So we know the 700 is fixed, but we've got really funny dimensions here, like really weird. So if we go end, we load our standards, we change our hook into a no hook, and we change our offset for a leg length, and we make our leg length 900 for instance. Then I can hover over this leg, that's forced 900, and I click over this leg, that's a forced 900. And we can already see it just from the values here in the magenta little dimension line. We can also just verify it by clicking on it and go inquire, and we can see it in the bending schedule 900 by 900 by 700. And now to get the other one done, it's a simple process of clicking on this one, right click, and we can say copy special linear, and we copy it from this point to this point, copy, and that's 100% with the laps and everything. So if we click on it, we can see we've got the 900 and 900, everything is work. All we need to do is look at the spacing. So if I go Control P and I click on this bar, it's now in line with that one. So we need to move it one more. So 88 plus another 19 mils is 107 mils. And because we have the spacing set to a flexible last, it's already worked out all the spacing for us correctly. All we need to do is adjust the end here. So it's overlapping with that one. So we need to introduce another 19 millimeters there. And if we do that, it pushes it one back, and we can see how beautiful those now all line up perfectly without any clashes. And now all that's left to do on this one is to go longitudinal again. We pick our 16s, we will make it green, and we'll get rid of the offsets, and we'll say the distribution is going to be a target of 300, and that's it. And then when we click this section, we can say we want a top or bottom and top, create, and then click on this one and say top and bottom, create, and that creates all the distribution steel for us. Now if we look at that, if we look at that, we can see how well that's worked out for us. We have our Z bars exactly where we want them, no clashes, and we've got our distribution steel exactly where we want them, no clashes. So that's a pretty good way to detail a slab. Now I know, this is a very small slab, but it's no different. Once you've done that, you can copy bars around the slab and very quickly finish the whole slab. I think, in terms of slab, unfortunately with slabs, there's not there are components that do specific things, but the rule is there's always one that can't help you and you have to do it manually. So I hope these methods that I show you help you to solve your manual issues when you start reinforcing with rebar sets. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next video.